Okay, so let's do this quickly. Why is this not working? Alright, so at the Android basics, if you guys remember, we briefly went through the 4 components, which are activities, the screen, every screen where you interact with the user, you display information, any kind of thing happens on an activity. Services are things that run in the background, like music players, things that poll for news, that kind of stuff. Content providers are just wrappers to help you provide content to your application, whether it's a news app, email, or that kind of stuff. It's not absolutely necessary, but it's usually easier to see, work with. Broadcast receivers, as I mentioned, are things that receive broadcasts such as the battery's low or Twitter. Actually, no, tweet probably wouldn't work. Push notifications, that's a broadcast. Battery's low, you're out of signal, internet's gone, all of those kinds, or all of those are receivers. Actually, widgets are also receivers. I don't know if you guys can see this properly. Okay. And then all of this information is declared in the Android manifest. So an activity is a single focused screen that is usually used to interact with the user. I hope some of you guys have already read that must read there, because there's really a lot of information there that will be brought up later when you're coding that you wouldn't have come across before if you hadn't read it. Activities are arguably the most important part. So an activity, you have to create the activity, to create the object, define it. You have to have it started in one way or another. We had only one activity and we started it from the manifest. So that was the activity that launched with the app. You can start it from another activity. So when I'm browsing my email and I hit the compose button, it'll take you to another activity that will compose an email. An activity can be shut down by the system in case of emergency, or if you back out, it'll that way, or you can finish it yourself, as in when you hit the send button, I'm imagining it would close that activity and go back to the inbox. And the activity's lifecycle is very, very important. There's on create, on resume, on pause, on stop, and on destroy. I forgot on start. On create, on start, on resume, and then they're complementary: on pause, on stop, and on destroy. So a view is anything that can be drawn. Buttons, images, videos are actually also views. Anything that appears on the screen is a view. There's 2 main categories of views. You have views that are drawn themselves, or views that are that have children within them. So whenever you're looking at a list, that's a view that has many, 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 many views inside of it. And they usually form some form of hierarchy. Okay, so the manifest is an XML document which has all the important information declared. Some of the most important information is the activities, the package name, the version, and the permissions you use. So whether it has access to your contacts, to the internet, to your location, all of that kind of stuff would be declared in the manifest. Yep, and the SDK version. I'm targeting Android Jelly Bean or Android Gingerbread or any of that kind of stuff. Actually, do you guys want me to switch on the lights in the back? Should I switch off the ones on the sides? And for our demo, actually, technical information, it uses Java. You can actually code in C and C++ too, but it's mostly in Java. It runs a Dalvik virtual machine, which is essentially the same as Java, but with little tweaks that Google did. And limited RAM as compared to iOS. iOS doesn't really support multitasking. Android fully does, so you get way more RAM on iOS than Android. That's one disadvantage. And then we went through Hello World. And I actually forgot the conclusion. From the last lecture, I threw a lot of information at you guys. The only important stuff from that was just what an activity is, what a view is, what the manifest is, and how to go about Hello World. Today we're going to be going a lot more through more of the UI stuff. So, slideshow. Okay. And still won't let me go to the next one. It still won't let me go to the next slide. So, recap of centered hello world. At the very, very end of the lecture, I quickly put hello world in a frame layout and centered it. I'm not sure if many of you grasped that. Would you like me to go through that again? Quick show of hands. Yes? Okay, that's good enough for me. So, let's close that. Hello world. So if you guys remember, we created an activity, we overrode the onCreate method, we kept its previous functionality, this is the super, and then we set the content view to be the XML that we defined that had our layout inside. Now if we go to that XML, we have a frame layout with a text view inside. Initially it started off with just a text view, so we'll start off with that and do that again. A text view can't have any children, so I'm actually just going to remove that and close it here. For those of you who know, that's just a tag. It can be open and closed, or it could be just on its own. I closed it because you can't have anything inside of a text view. It's just a text view. So we have our text view, and if I run this, let's actually go forward with that. I'm going to need the emulator. So if we had the text view, it printed hello world, it was aligned at the top left of the screen. I want to put that in the center. Now, the only things I could play with earlier, I'll mention here, which is you can actually add padding. You can say, I want this much space around it. You can actually specify padding in each direction. So I can center it in the middle of the screen with padding. The only problem is I don't know how much padding I need. Different phones have different resolutions with different ratios, with different densities, and so it would be really hard to do it in an XML. The only way I would do that is in the program, and then I would calculate the dimensions and do all of that. But that seems unnecessarily complicated. I want the text view to just be a text view. I don't need it to handle the screen and start manipulating numbers. What I want to do is take that text view, put it in some kind of container, and then I'll tell that container anything inside you goes in the middle. That's one way of doing it. Or the other way would be telling the text view, the text view would tell its parent to place me in the middle. Both of them do the exact same thing. The reason you can do both is because, I'll wait for this to launch, but basically the reason you can do that is, let's say I wanted to create a frame layout or like some kind of view group with all of its children aligned to the bottom right. Then I would just do it on the parent. I'll tell the parent anything that goes within you goes to the bottom right. But if I wanted 4 views each to go to a corner, what do I do with the parent? I can't tell the parent, make this one go there, that one go there, that one. You can't. It's just one gravity attribute. So in that case, I would tell the children, each one would tell its parent, I want to go this corner, that corner, that corner, that corner. Okay. And I'll actually demonstrate this in code in a second. Dear God, it's slow. Come on, come on. What the hell? It was much faster last time. Okay. I'm not sure what's happening. Yeah, I'm maxing out my RAM. That's what's happening. Okay, well anyway, we can still run the app. Let's run. What do I need everything. Why did it launch another emulator? God damn it. So sometimes the Android debugging tools or the Android tools don't detect a device plugged in. So all I'm going to do is just kill it and start it again. ADB stands for Android Debugger. It's what connects to the device and does everything. So now hopefully it'll actually detect the device and run it. And by the way, whenever you encounter any kind of like issue like that, there's a lot of resources online. Just put it in Google and I guarantee you'll find an answer. There's no, you just need to know. All of this stuff I learned, I just Googled and I was like, oh, okay, so that's what's happening. Let's see. That is not my app. Today's just a bad day, isn't it? Oh, there it is. Kind of. Okay. That shouldn't have been there. Let's rerun. Dear God. So the default gravity for any layout or any view group is at the top left. And that's why when you do nothing, it goes at the top left. And it's not even running. Okay, so finally, we have it at the top left. Now, I want to center it. I need some kind of parent, and I need to put myself in the center of that parent. Now, in reality, the text view isn't actually the very, very root. Android system implements a couple of views that actually give you that white background, because the white background is on some view and it's there. So, depending on what type of parent I have different abilities. I can say I want to go on the right of that guy, or we'll go into details of this. But basically, the only way I can guarantee that I can do something within a parent is if I create that parent myself. So I'm going to wrap it in another container. I'm going to put it in a frame layout. And I don't really need an ID. I'm just going to write ASD and then actually delete it. Now, I want my frame layout, the container, to actually span the entire parent. I want it to be the whole screen so I can center the other guy within it. If both of them wrapped content, they would shrink and go in the top corner. Does that make sense? Match parent, and let's run it. It's launching. Fun times. Meanwhile, so I'm gonna wait for it to actually, okay, I think it's about to launch. There we go. And that didn't, oh, I didn't actually specify center. I didn't actually center it. So now I will say layout gravity is centered. Make sense? And when any parameter that starts with the word layout underscore, or like layout folder underscore, is relative to its parent. So this isn't the text view telling itself or its children or anything inside of it where the gravity is. It's telling its parent where it wants to be. And of course, the parent has the choice to actually follow that or not. If there's collisions, then the parent will do something, depending on what type of view it is. Oh my God. Okay, there we go. Now we'll move on to actual details of how these work and the different types and everything. So, we'll get back to contexts. So, a linear layout. A linear layout is a view group that aligns all children in a single direction. You can do it either vertically or horizontally, and god damn it, I'm not going to do that anymore. You can specify the layout direction in the XML. You can say I want this linear layout to put things in an order in vertical order or in horizontal order. Other way around. So you use a linear layout for things like this, if you guys can see. That is probably a horizontal linear layout. It has a view, a small divider, a view, another small divider, another view, and so on and so forth. The way you can differentiate between like something like a linear layout and a list, because you can have a horizontal list or a vertical list, right? Is usually linear layouts aren't scrollable. It's just things beside each other. It doesn't implement any scrolling functionality. A list, on the other hand, can have infinitely many elements, and you can scroll them. So that's a linear layout, and we'll do demos towards the end. And a linear layout also follows the whole gravity rule. The default gravity is top left, but you can specify I want, or it actually depends on vertical or horizontal. You can only specify one direction. So if my linear layout is horizontal and I want things to start at the right end, I can say gravity is right, and then I'll start laying them out in that order. And the way you do it is the same way we did over here. Actually, we'll demonstrate that quickly. If I change this to a linear layout, I should have access to gravity. Layout gravity is for its parent. Gravity is for its children. Remember, layout always refers to the parent. So here I would say I have many, many, many choices. Usually it's top, pipe, left. That means like and. Combination of both. Right? Simple enough. So next is relative layout. Relative layout is when you have things that are placed relative to each other or relative to the parent. So let me find a quick example. This would probably be a relative layout. This guy is aligned to the left of the parent. These two are aligned to the right of the parent, and then this one is aligned to the top of this one, or that one below that one. You can do it either way. Try not to make anything circular. If you say this is above that and this is below that and this is above this, the system might not know what to do with it because it'll infinite loop. But anyway, Eclipse will warn you when you do that. So that's something like a relative layout. We will go through examples of these. Okay, so actually I want to do the examples for these now before we get into ListView, because the list is a little bit more complicated. So let's do that. Let's say we want two text views. I want to place them horizontally or vertically. Choose something. Anyone? No?
Horizontally.
Horizontal? Okay, horizontally. So the default is horizontal. But it's usually better to just specify it so the next guy reading can know. I will say horizontal. Although that is default. If I didn't do anything, it would have placed them horizontally anyway. So let's call this one, how are you? And let's run. Make sure you don't make any of the children inside a linear layout match parent in any of the dimensions, because then it'll span the parent and there won't be more space for other ones, right? So always keep that in mind. Alright, I forgot it doesn't like running things today. Oh, I guess it isn't top left, I guess it's just left. So that's what happens. If I wanted to make it top left, gravity, left. And then actually I can probably just see that here. No, it still doesn't like it. Interesting.
Just center in there.
Oh, good call. That would be it. And then I actually think it is top left. So now we look at the graphical layout, and there we go. We're at the top left. Excuse the major zooming in. But it takes ages to run, so I'm just going to show you that here for now. And then if we make it vertical, and we go to graphical layout, we'll see them under each other. Cool. Relative layout. Okay, so I'll put one at the very top left and one at the very bottom right. Relative layout. So of course this orientation attribute doesn't make sense anymore. Then over here I will say align parent top equals true, align parent left equals true, and then I will say align parent bottom is true, align parent right is true, and the emulator probably won't show that to us well enough. Okay. There's also a grid layout. There's also a scroll view. There's also a whole bunch of stuff. I will go through a list right now. And a list is a little bit interesting. There's two ways I can do a list. Either get all of my elements that I want to be listed, put them in a linear layout, and put them after each other. And since that doesn't scroll, make it scroll. Or I can use what's called a list view. Now, a list view is a little bit weird because imagine you were looking at one of those apps that when you scroll to the bottom, it loads more. Many apps do that. When you scroll to the bottom, it starts loading more elements. What if you keep doing that for like 5 hours? You're going to have a lot of items. If all of them are being displayed or all of them are in the linear layout, it's going to get really, really, really slow. And then it's going to have trouble navigating it. Hell, you could even run out of memory. So the way lists work in most mobile systems, BlackBerry, Android, and iOS, all work essentially the same way, is it recycles views. I'm actually going to show you that if this emulator lets me. I believe I created a list app. Simple list. This is a list. We'll walk through actually creating this now, but I just wanted to demonstrate. This list has 20, it actually has 100, from 0 to 99. But you can see only 22 and I think a corner of that one. So you can only see 23 elements at a time, right? I can see the very bottom of the 0th element and the very top of the 23 element. I guess that makes it 24. Now, so what list views actually do, same way in iOS, same way in Android, BlackBerry, is they recycle the views. So the moment that 0 goes off screen, it's taken away, that view is taken away and stored. And the moment that 24 comes on screen, it'll take it from the recycle bin, as they call it, and fill it up with the new data. So what happens is it only, in this case, it'll only create 24 views. That's it. Even if I have 10 billion items, it'll only create 24 views. And the nice thing about that is it doesn't take a lot of memory. And as long as your view isn't extremely complicated, it will be able to render and draw it on the spot. It'll be able to take that item while that one's off screen, take the view, and fill it up. So since it's no longer as simple as I create a list view and put items inside of it, someone on the back end has to be managing all of this data. Someone has to be keeping track of, oh, which views are on, this new one that's coming in, what's its ID, what data does it have, what position is it. It's no longer as simple as a view group and you put children inside. You actually have to create something called an adapter. So an adapter is an interface defined by Android, which gives you a few methods to implement. You implement the methods appropriately, it will work. There's many types of adapters. There's some that have that already do a lot of the functionality for you. So you just give it an array and it will work. Or you can actually create your own. I'm going to skip the array one because I actually want to explain how they work. Not just go like, do this, it works. So let's actually get to it. So I'm going to remove all of this. Actually, I'm going to keep it so we can, I'll comment it out. So I can give you guys the code later. Comment it out. So I'm going to make a list view. Height is match parent. Width is match parent. And I'm gonna have to add an ID in a second, but I'll explain why first. So clearly I can't actually put the data in the XML because I don't have it. Many times it's like, imagine you're the Twitter app. There isn't code running here. You have to get that list, you'll be able to obtain that list, and programmatically put the data in. So I'm going to have to give it something called an ID. There's a lot of default categories for IDs. At plus ID, all of them start with at. So the at is negligible. ID is default ones. Plus ID means you're creating a new one. I'm creating a new ID and I'm going to call it list. Now we go back to the activity. Wait, what are you complaining about? Unbound prefix. I'm just going to clean. If Eclipse acts retarded, clean. There you go. Seems to be fine now. Alright, so now this doesn't need to change, right? I'm still using the same layout file. What's up with Eclipse? Why are you complaining? I still don't understand. List view, layout height, layout width. What's your problem?
Do you have a closing tag at the moment?
Right there.
You mean like ending your list view? Like before when you had a relative layout, like you had a slash relative layout, so you need the same thing for list view?
If you notice here, I didn't have that slash.
Oh.
So the slash actually closes it right there.
Okay.
So it shouldn't need it. Yeah, it's still complaining. That didn't do it. What the? Could it be this comment? I've actually never seen this before. What the? Oh. Okay, I know exactly what's wrong. So for XMLs, you always need the resource, because who defines what a list view is? I need that. That was silly of me. But that's added in automatically. You don't need to memorize it. The moment I created this file, it added it. I just forgot to copy it over. Okay, so now that that's over, we need to create the adapter. The basic form of an adapter, the one that allows you to do anything you want, as opposed to just be defined for an array or be defined for any certain types, is called a BaseAdapter. So we will go here, create a new class, call it numbers adapter, and actually it's just an object. It extends, actually no, it is an object. It extends something called a BaseAdapter. So whenever you create a BaseAdapter, Eclipse gives you this. You have to fill in these methods. GetCount simply asks how many items we have. For now, we're just going to implement something that just puts numbers up, so we can choose anything you want. I'm going to choose, like that one, like the one we had, 100 items. This is, in our case, it's not really useful, but this is where you would obtain the backing data type. So for Twitter, their tweets and the images and all of that information for a tweet is probably stored in an object or something, or a struct, if you do C, that has all of that information. This is just a method that would return that information. So it's the backing data. You don't absolutely need to do it, but it's usually helpful. In our case, there is no backing data. The only data we have for the item is its position. So I'm going to take that position and return it. Just say that that's the item. And the ID is sometimes when you have a list with many different types. I can't think of an example. If you go to the settings screen, it's a big list view, right? Some items you can press and go into. Some items are checkboxes. Some items are headers. So sometimes it's useful for you to be able to determine what ID or what type of item I'm dealing with. This method and another method called getItemViewType are to determine the types. We only have one type for now, so we can actually ignore this, or we can just return position. It doesn't harm us. This is the method. This is the important method. This will tell you, give me back the view that I should put in the list. It's asking you to return the view. It's telling you the view is at this position. I'll explain that in 1 second, and this is the parent. The parent in this case would be the actual list view. So what they call convert view is the view that it obtained from the recycle bin, if any. So in our case, we just want to use text views, right? If convert view was null, as in there was nothing in the recycle bin, as in the very first launch, there is nothing in the recycle bin, I need to create a view. And then it can use it and display it and all of that kind of stuff. So then I will say convert view equals new text view. That won't work because we actually need to pass in, if you guys remember earlier when we created it here, we had text view TV equals new text view, and I had to pass in this for that to work, and that's just a missing import. And now I'm going to actually explain context, this thing I skipped over. So we'll continue writing this code, it's 2 lines, and then I'll go into contexts. So let's assume I've created my new text view. Now all I need to do is fill it in with the data. What is our data in this case? It's simply the text. Now convert view is a view. Text view is a very specific kind of view. So I will need to cast convert view as a text view to be able to use it as a text view and set text on it. Does that make sense? I'll repeat it again. So a convert view, or what they pass into me as a convert view, is a view. Just a view, a general view. Now a view, the general view, does not have any text functionality or image functionality or anything specific. It's just something that can be drawn. In my case, I know that this convert view will be a text view because that's all I'm dealing with anyway. So I will take my view, cast it to a text view, and use it as a text view. So text view convert view dot set text, and to convert the position to a string, I'll just do this. The way Java works is if you take any string, like that's just an empty string, but it could be position is, actually we can do that, and you add any object to it, it'll convert it to a string. So that'll take that integer number, that int, and convert it to a string. And missing import. Okay, and then I will simply return that view because it asked me to return that view. So now there's 2 ways I can get into this method. There was something in the recycle bin, there was a view in the recycle bin and I'm just filling it in, or there wasn't one and I need to create it and fill it in. So let's make sure both flows work. If I come here and there is nothing in the recycle bin, which means it gave me a null convert view, I will come to this if, and I will come in here and assign it a new text view. So I created a new text view. And then I will fill it in with the position. If there was something in the recycle bin, I will get some view here. It won't be null, it will be something. And then it'll skip this if, it'll fill it up with the new data, and then return the same view. So this works for both cases. Now, I need to fill that up. I need a context. What exactly is a context? Now, I'm writing Java, right? I'm just writing Java code right now. What can I do here to be able to access Android resources or something to do with Android? To be able to get access to my resources file, the string, to be able to start activities, to finish activities, I can't just use, there's nothing built into Java that does that. So there is something called a context. It's an object that gives you access to all of these resources. I will go back to the very top. So it's an interface to global information about an application environment. It allows access to application-specific resources and classes, as well as upcalls for application-level operations such as launching activities, broadcasting, and receiving intents. Anything you ever do that will need some kind of Android functionality has to be done through a context. So I'll give you an example, which we actually already have done. When I created this text view, the text view is something that's Android specific. To be able to create it and to be able to draw it, I need access to a context. So where's my context here? It's in this. An activity is an object that extends a context. So an activity in English, in very, very basic English, an activity is a context. Just like the same way a mechanical engineer is an engineer. It's a more specific type of context, but it's also just an engineer, or just a context. So we can define what an engineer is in general terms. For those who don't know object-oriented programming, you can define what an engineer is, and then there's many different types of engineers. So Android has defined what a context is, and there's many different types of contexts. One of them is an activity. Are we good? Anyone doesn't understand? All right, cool. So to be able to create this text view, I need a context. So I don't have one here. This is all I have. You're looking at the code I have. So I will need to pass one in. Whenever I create this adapter, I will have to give it a context. So I will create the constructor for who here doesn't know object-oriented programming? Does anyone not know what a constructor is? All right, cool. BaseAdapter. Of course, I haven't created the activity field yet. It will complain, and I will create it. So, basically, I created a constructor and a field called an activity. So every instance of a BaseAdapter, oh sorry, that's the wrong name actually. Numbers adapter. So every time I create my numbers adapter, I will need to pass in an activity with it. And then I will take that activity, this activity, and save it into this activity, which is a field variable. As long as the adapter exists, it will continue to exist. And then I can say activity here. And we're done with the adapter.
I have a question.
Yes?
So what does the add override mean?
Basically, whenever you create a class, this is a class, you have the option of making this class not actually instantiable. I'll give you a more concrete example. An integer is something that can be created. Someone has defined what an integer is, and I can make as many integers as I want. But in the case of a BaseAdapter, the person who created the BaseAdapter and its functionality didn't want you to use just a BaseAdapter because there are blanks missing in it. So he created like the sentence and he left blanks inside. And when you want to actually use a BaseAdapter, you have to fill in those blanks. So override is when a method, a function, is defined in BaseAdapter, but the BaseAdapter forces you to implement it. So the BaseAdapter knows that there will be a function called getCount, getItem, all of these functions, but the BaseAdapter himself did not define them. He wants the user to define them. So when you create a BaseAdapter, you have to say what the count is. How do you get a view? And that's the way Java lets you know that you have to create these methods. So I can create a method here, like public int return 5. It will literally return 5. So if I didn't have that override notation, I wouldn't be able to differentiate between which one of those is something the BaseAdapter asked me to define and which one of those is a method I wanted to define. Make sense? return 5 is something that BaseAdapter doesn't care about. It cares about get count. And now we'll go to the main activity. I don't know why that's complaining. Oh, imported the wrong var. R is the resources file, if you guys remember. R is the object that refers to all the resources. There's an R for Android. We don't want to use the general Android one. We want to use the one specifically created for our project. And we can get rid of that import. So I've created, so now my list view is in there, right? It's in this XML. I've defined it here. But I haven't given it the adapter. I need to tell the list view, I need you to use this adapter to populate your content. I need access to the list view. Over here, I can't say new list. I can't say new because I'm creating a new one. I need that one in the XML. That's where the ID will come into play, where, if you remember, we defined it here. So this list view has an ID, a universal ID. Anywhere in the app, this list you will always have the ID list. It may actually be on screen, it may not be, but the ID is just a resource. So in the activity, I can just say find view by ID. I know that the list view is in this activity, right? It's inflated, it's actually displayed on screen. I know that this is in this when I set content view. I also don't need that this. I will say it's a method literally called find view by ID. And then I have to give it the ID. Now the ID is related to the resource. It's not the string. It's not like I can't write literally list. It's something that Android compiles into the R object. So I will say r.id.list. Now this method returns a view. In my case, I know it's specifically a list view, so I'll cast it. So now that I have my list view, I can set the adapter on it. And then I will say new numbers adapter. It has to be an object. I can't give it the actual definition of the class, of course. So why does it not like that? Actually, we'll do it in two statements. Numbers adapter. Why doesn't it like that? Did I create that in the wrong project or something? Sure. I'm just moving it from the default package. I forgot to put it in the actual package. I moved it to the actual hello world package, although it probably shouldn't be there anymore. There we go. Adapter equals new numbers adapter. And I need to pass in an activity. If you guys remember, we defined it such that it needs an activity when it's constructed. And then I can say list set adapter. And we've done it. This is actually the old one that I defined, so we should be able to see ours now. Any questions? Does anything not make sense? Yeah, go ahead.
I don't quite understand what does
This. Okay. Well, and okay. So, have you done object-oriented programming before? So this refers to the object that's this. Yeah. So, if you remember, in the numbers adapter, I needed an activity to be able to create the text view, right? I needed a context to create the text view. An activity is a context, so I just use an activity. I needed to pass it in. When I create this numbers adapter, when I instantiate an object of type numbers adapter, I need to give it the activity with it so that the... Oh, sorry. This activity. The activity. I'm giving it that object. Sorry, yeah. It means the activity. I'm passing in the activity to the BaseAdapter. Right? And it works. And actually here, I'll try to see if I can prove to you guys that it actually only gets here 24 times. Actually, I don't know if I have the time, but you can try it. You can actually put a counter there or a log statement and print out, and you'll see that it only ever happens 24 times. This part, which is the instantiation of text views. So the only thing left for... Why does it limit it? Because I set the count as 100.
Oh, it's just because of the get count.
Yeah,
Oh,
here.
okay, that's the count.
Yeah, so here I can make it 40.
Oh, okay.
And then we run. Not sure if it reran it. And actually, this is one of the cases where you wouldn't be able to see your application. Huh? Oh, it's still running. You wouldn't be able to see what your activity looks like in the graphical layout. I'll show you in 1 second. So there, 40 items. But if I go to activity main now and hit the graphical layout, I won't see anything. It'll just say in general item, item, item. It'll just show you that there exists a list here. Why? Because all the data and all the views in this case are instantiated programmatically. So the graphical layout is good whenever you're doing static stuff or whenever you're just generally forming it. But to actually see the data and see it working, you need to run your app. And so the last thing I wanted to... are there any questions before? The last thing I wanted to show you guys is a scroll view. So if you remember, we said like a linear layout doesn't scroll. So what if I needed to place items, like a whole bunch of different items, just to create an app that has a whole bunch, like you have a header and then like a pager and like ads and text, and I want to create something like that, but the height of it is more than the screen. And if it's a linear layout, because that's probably what you would end up using, I won't be able to scroll it. I need to be able to make it scrollable, which means I need some kind of container that can span more than the screen. Right? Because that's how websites work. The actual website is more than what fits on your screen. It just shows you as much as the screen fits, and then you can scroll up and down. So to do that, you just take anything you want and wrap it in a scroll view. So we'll get rid of our list view. I'll actually comment it out so we can still use it. However, I will remember the resources this time. So I will create a scroll view. And I will put inside of it a linear layout. Because, a scroll view is essentially the same as the list view. Sorry, as a frame layout, which means it on its own does not define any relative placement of objects inside of it. So it's not like a linear layout where it'll lay things out below each other. That's what a linear layout does, not a scroll view. A scroll view simply allows you to scroll. So to be able to place items inside in a linear fashion, I need to actually put a linear layout inside of it. So I created a linear layout. Actually, I need to specify height and width. Match parent. The size of the scroll view, of course, is match parent for both dimensions. The linear layout, its width is match parent. No idea why I did that. Does that make sense? The linear layout's width is match parent, but its height isn't. Right? Because if I limit it to the parent size, then it'll be the same size as the screen, and I won't be able to place more items in the linear layout. I need my linear layout to be able to span as big as it wants, and the scroll view will be able to scroll everything inside of it. I believe the linear layout will actually ignore it if you said match parent anyway, but always be cautious. And in this case, we actually want it to be vertical. And then I will create, I'll just take these text views. and I'm gonna just put a whole bunch of text views inside. Hopefully this will span more than the screen. I may have pasted a few too many. Let's make sure this works. And actually, if my battery doesn't run out, in the last couple of minutes, I'll show you what happens if I don't put this in a scroll view. You'll see them, and they'll just chop off at the end of the screen. And you won't be able to scroll. Yes?
How do you make a static area when you can scroll bits up and then you're at a static
Good question. Okay, so the way you would do it is the scroll view, you won't make the scroll view span the entire parent. You'll make the scroll view take half of it, for example, or something. To do that half, since Android doesn't allow you to just like specify how many pixels, or it doesn't like recommend it, you can either put a linear layout of a scroll view and then just a view, empty, leave it blank, and then give them each half. There's an attribute in linear, this is going to take ages. Actually, yeah, this is a good time to show that. Okay, in a linear layout, when you're using a linear layout, all the items inside can take on something called a weight. There's a layout weight attribute that will do exactly what you mean. So I will, if I want to span half the screen, I'll put 2 items inside my linear layout, a scroll view and a view. I'll just leave this empty as a, like, to do nothing. I'll actually just put a view. There's something I actually called a view. You'll leave it empty. And I'll give each of them a weight of 0.5. And if it's vertical, it'll align them in that order. I don't know what's up with my laptop.
0.5 is automatic.
Sorry?
Is it the default 0.5?
The,
Can you set it into 75 or 25?
you can do both. I don't know what's its problem right now. Oh wait, its problem is here. Oh right, this ID no longer exists because I commented out the list, right? So I'm going to comment these lines out. So remember how I mentioned the weight is for all the children? In the linear layout itself, on its attributes, there's a max weight, or like a sum of weights. So you can define the sum to be, the default sum is 1. You can define the default sum to be 100, and then make it 75. Or the main use for it is when something is not exactly rounded. So let's say I wanted each view to take a third, and I don't want to say 0.3333333. I would make the max sum like 3, and then, yeah, 111. I don't know what's with my laptop. Okay, there we go. Come on. No? You're not gonna run? And it crashed. So let's see what we did wrong. Caused by binary XML file. Must supply. I forgot to supply a width for something. Probably the. Oh no, I just forgot this. Please don't run out of battery.